Hi there and welcome to lesson 33. In this lesson we will be adding a boat to the scene, as you could have guessed by the title. Really, I needed to tell you that. Anyways, let's jump into it. Right, so as per usual we will activate our isometric grid. On top of that, we will have a 50% fill layer for when we want to clearly see what's happening below all of this magic or above all of this magic. Right, so let's jump into it. I'm going to create a new paint layer. I'm going to grab my usual grayish blue color, maybe slightly darker. Right, and then using my brush, I think I'm going to use that one today. That's fine. And that brush is the basic 6 details brush in Gritter. And I'm going to use a size 5, 6. I think that's small enough for now for drawing purposes. We could make it smaller when we do the detailing. Right, so now a boat. What is a boat? It's a box that you can put on the water. So let's draw a box on the water. It's quite simple and easy to draw boats. Well, the box type or the box kind. It starts to get complicated when you cut away from this box and when you want to make it pretty and streamlined. Right, so there we've got our box. Simple, and that could constitute a boat. Yeah. Right, so now usually they don't make boats like this. They usually have a bow and a stern, and as if I know what that means besides that. So let's, for our purposes, because I'm not into boating, so I'm not going to use boat terms. And some of you might be into boating, and I'm going to look ridiculous if I start to use boat terms. So we'll be talking about the front, the left, and the right of the boat. Nothing about sterns and starboard and planet board and those stuff. Nothing of that. Right, so to get the middle of a square or rectangle, we draw across from corner to corner, and that way we get the exact middle of a rectangle. So divide your rectangles in half, then you can draw a straight line from half to half, and that seems to be this one seems to be out of whack. Yeah, so there we go. Much more better. All right, so there we've got a boat divided into half again. So that's our little box. Now, if you look at a boat from the top, they usually do this kind of thing. So these are the center line of the boat. They've got a sharp point to break or cleave open the water, and then they've got a taper to the end to make the water flow easier. And in aviation and in marine, there's a principle about pressure. So I'm not going to try to explain it. Believe me, they do this shape for a reason, so that the boat goes quicker in the water. The same with airplane wings. It's all about pressure and how to make the air flow and create vortexes and that sort of thing. Now, boats has been designed for the same reason, because if you think of air and water, they are both liquids and both have very, very similar properties. So there's a reason why the boat is sharp at the front and it tapers at the back, and some boats even are rounded at the back as well. We'll keep it simple. We'll keep it flat at the back for our boat, but if you want to draw a fancy fast boat, you'll have a round end to that as well. So let's just delete this part. Let's keep that open as a sample. I want to duplicate because I want to have I want to draw a boat from the front and from the back so that we can see what it looks like when we have the boat going in different directions. So let's put this box over here. Now let's put it here, and I'll move that little design upwards. So let's move that up. Oh no. Okay, let's move that up. So this is just for, as a reference. Let's delete that one, and now we can start drawing. Right, so let's start with the boat coming towards us first. So let's create a new paint layer, and I'm going to change my color so that we can see that easily. And we're going to take that design and draw it on top of this. So about a third, let's make that a third of the way. We're going to make the boat a bit wider. So we need to make the boat wider there, like so. And then at the back, we're going to use a third there. So it's almost like we're going to take that and cut that into thirds. We're going to take that and cut that into thirds. We're going to take our boat's line towards that last, or the outer third of that. Right, simple enough. Now we need to think about what a boat looks from the front and from the back. So let's try and imagine that we are looking at the boat from the front. Right, this is not going to be right, but the front looks something like that. But we need to, okay, we'll get to that. We'll do a side view, but for the moment, just focus on that kind of look. Right, and then from the back, it's going to look very similar. So let's make that front, top, and back. But the back is going to be something like that. Right. All right, so we'll get to the side for the let's forget about the side for the moment. Now if we take that and copy that all over the place, so bring that down, right, remember we've got a line going from here to there as well. So bring that down to the middle line, bring that down to the middle line, and we are going to copy that design for the front bit. So we need to do this. Something like that. We can do it in the middle as well. Okay, okay, let's change the shape a little bit for the middle part. Now remember, we need to blend from this shape to that shape for the back. So here is somewhere in the middle, or at the back, I'm gonna make it a little bit more straight. And we've got that middle line, so this needs to go to the middle line, and I'm gonna bring it to that middle line. So this needs to be in line with each other as well. And then for the back, we're gonna copy that, taper it a little bit. And we've got that middle line there, so this needs to go to there and to there, so we can make it flat like that. Right, Now for the front bit, that is going to follow that line, and then we can just extend it towards that line. And we need to draw it as if this is a frame or transparent object, so that we can have the inside, so that we know where to add those ribs on the inside of our boat. Like so. Right. Okay, all of this will make sense when I start to flesh it out. Now there's another part to boats. If we look at boats from the side, it's usually not something that looks like this. Sometimes they have that front part sticking out a little bit, so bringing it up a little bit, and then they bring the boat down, and then at the back it comes up like that. So we've got that line as well. So let's bring this up a little bit, and let's imagine that this line goes towards that first rib that we've added, and then the same for this side. Right, so our boat, the front part, the nose, the tip at the front will extend a little bit upwards and then downwards to that first rib. And then we can use that same line, bring it down just ever so slightly towards the back. So trim it, and then take it up to the back. Let's make that slightly darker so that we can see where we are going with this. Right. Now it looks like a whole mess of lines, but we'll clean this up. I'll show you just how to do that very, very soon. So we've got the ribs going. Right, now inside of the boat, if this is a rowing boat, there usually are seats for the captain and the rowers, or just the captain. Right, so I'm just going to make that slightly different color so that we can easily see it. So we've got a seat in the back like that. Right, and then somewhere in the middle there's another seat where the shipmates sit and rows. And then we've got another, you know what, let's do a nose cabin or a nose storage area. So there's going to be a storage area in the front, something like that. Right, I think that's good. Just a very basic boat. Now for the rower, there's usually eyelets in the seat here, or next to the seat, attached to the boat, where the oars goes through. And of course a boat is nothing, doesn't have locomotion if you don't have oars, so we will need to add oars as well. Now oar is very basic. It's just a stick, and at the end of those sticks are paddles like so, and then we just tape that to create the shape of an oar. But we are just gonna put them in here because the boat has been moored and is going nowhere for the moment. So we just need to show that there are oars that could make this boat move if so desired. Right, so there we go. It looks messy, but once we've added the detail, it will all make sense. Now, let's quickly look at the other boat, going the other direction. So very, very similar. You're going to use the same principles to draw this boat. So down, the flat. So we need that line going towards there, a third at the back and a third at the front. Then we need to draw that rib in. Right, and here we bring it down. Okay, now let's bring it in first. Right. Then we've got another third here that we need to add our rib in. And then towards the middle, it's almost, imagine that it's a wire frame. You need to build this boat using wires before you start adding all of the rest. So we need a line going towards there, and maybe a line going towards there. Right, and then we said we want to raise the tip, the nose of our boat. Bring it down, and then we can trim the boat here and trim it a little bit here as well. Right, now we need to add the seats as well. Same story. And that nose storage area. We could even add a little door in there for this boat, because we can see that that nose area a little bit more clearly. And then the eyelets for the rower. Someone needs to power the boat, and some pretty oars as well. Let's put the oars in here. Right. I think that looks good. Right, so we can get rid of our box boats. We don't need those anymore. I'm gonna activate my 50%. I set it to 50% opacity, and that's why I call it 50%. Okay, so just make it a little bit darker, and maybe we can change the color to something a little bit more appropriate, like blue. All right, grand. So let's create a new. Okay, so that's my boat's rough. So that's the boat's rough drawing. Right, let's delete that and create a new layer on top of that, and let's call it boat going. Let's call it coming, coming. All right, let's call it south. It's going south. So let's imagine that this is south and that is north. Not really, but you've got to have some direction. Right, lower the opacity of this, select your boat drawing, use your brush. I'm gonna make the brush size a little bit smaller. Maybe I want a different brush. That one, nope. That one, yeah, maybe. Let's make it 4. Yeah, I think that one works. Right, let's just make it 4 pixels. Press D on the keyboard to reset the colors to black and white. And now it's time to draw our boat. I'm just going to do the eyelet here. So I'm drawing everything in front first. And then I'll draw all of the stuff that's further into the distance. So that eyelet there. Right. Okay. I'm not going to use a ruler to draw all of these lines. I want some wonkiness in my lines. Of course, you are free to use a ruler if you desire to do such. If your lines needs to be perfect, who am I to judge straight lines? Right. Press E on the keyboard. You'll see if I press E, it activates my eraser, and if I press E again, it deactivates my eraser. So using the E key uses the same brush. So it's still using that same brush. Let me quickly show you. This brush has a almost like a jagged edge. And if I use the eraser, it keeps that jagged edge. So just keep that in mind when you use the E shortcut, the E button shortcut. It's going to use the same brush that you've been drawing with to erase with. Right, so another thing to keep in mind is that boats are not made or carved from solid wood. You do get boats that are carved from solid wood, granted, but boats are usually made out of planks that are bent around a curve, so we need to imitate or show that this boat has been crafted from planks. And as you go lower, you'll see that I go a little bit narrow at the back because the lines or these planks are going away from our view underneath the boat. And then one last plank here. Right, and we need to do the same for the inside. Maybe we take it from there all the way to the back, and okay. I forgot about that. So let's quickly do that. We need to add the ribs for the boat on the inside before we start adding the planks. Keep in mind that or imagine that this is going all the way to the bottom and up again. And maybe a ribbon here as well, and maybe another one in here as well. Okay, and we need to make this area fit around those ribs. The ribs are more important than the storage area. Right, and let's imagine that this is also made out of planks. So we would need to create the seams or the open spaces between the planks. All right, and then we can draw these in. I think that looks okay. So let's start drawing the next boat. It's going to be the same story. I'm going to do the same thing, just with the boat facing that way. Now with the drawing done, we're going to do the coloring. I'm going to use the same principles as we've done before, just using my lasso tool. Then I'm going to fill that with a fill layer and then add all of the highlights and shades. So yeah, let me start doing that and then I'll explain as I go. Right, let's group all of this together under one layer, Control G. So this is the boat that's going south, and all of this, Control G, and this is the boat going north. Right, and then we need to add a bit of shading to the boats if you want to, otherwise you don't need to, but let's do. So I'm going to use a fill layer, make it slightly darker brownish color like that. Right, and then set that to, all right, let's change the opacity back, set that to multiply. There we go, and then Control I. No. Let's Control All and press Delete on the keyboard. Press D on the keyboard to make sure that you've got black and white. Right, and then Control click the layer, that bottom layer, so that we create a mask. And then using your brush tool, just start adding shading to your scene. Let's call that shade. Let's bring down the opacity. and add shading. So let's imagine that the light is coming from that way. Everything on this side will be in shade. Okay, and then underneath the boat. Okay, the oars will cast a shadow on the boat's edge here, and then maybe the oars itself will have an edge that's in shade or shaded. That oar could cast a bit of a shadow onto that oar. This side of the plank is going to be shade. Underneath is going to be shadow. All right, so just think about it logically, where the light can reach and where the light won't reach areas, and it should be easy to add shades and shadows. And the same goes for highlight. So let's add a highlight layer. A layer with a yellowy brownish color like that. Okay, and set that to overlay. Let's make it slightly lighter after renaming it to highlights property, and let's make it slightly lighter. Right, and then Control I to invert the colors, and then just adding highlights. So let's lower the opacity. Highlights on that edge, highlight on that edge. Of course, the top of the boat's edge will have a highlight. Right, let's do the same for the boat going north. So add a shade layer, add fill layer, brownish, darkish color like that. Set that to multiply. Control I to invert the colors, and then think of it as if the light is coming from that way. So everything on this side will be in shade. Everything facing away from the light source will be in shade. Because if you look at this layer, that's our base layer. If we control click that, okay, I think I made a mistake here. We can select the whole shape of our boat. So control click that. So if I control click this, you'll see that it selects whatever we've done in here. So if I control click that, it only select the lines. If I control click that, it only select the highlights. The same for the shade. So whatever shape we've got going, it will only select that if we say, for instance, control click that icon. Rename it to shade, and now if I paint, I can go over the line and it won't paint anything else except everything that's been selected. Okay, I just want to change the color slightly to a slightly unsaturated color. So less saturated. Okay, and let's lower the opacity as well. And let's continue. Right, so keep thinking of where the light won't fall, where the light won't reach areas, and then just make those parts darker. So light won't reach this area. If the light is coming from that way, light won't reach this area. So this whole area can be in shadow, shade. So if I make a selection and press F on the keyboard and click while my colors are set to black and white, it will fill it with this shade color. But if my colors are gray, it's gonna lighten it. So black removes and white adds. Oh gosh, I forgot about the blanks for this area, for the inside. Right, I think we are there. So we just need to put these boats into the water. Oh. Let's, all right, so I'm going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to hide my previous one, Control E to merge that into a single boat. Now, I think if we move this, no, everything seems to be fine. But there's a frame that follows it. So I'm going to make a selection of the boat, Control C, Control V. And then if I select that now, yeah, the selection is smaller. Right, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to do the same for this one. Control J, Control E, make a selection of that. Control C, Control V to paste it, and then delete that layer. So now if I move my boat, it seems to be fine. Right. Now we need to keep in mind that these two boats are much larger than the vessels on the shore or the harbor edge, and we need to make it fit the size of the scene. So I'm gonna select both of these, Control T, and then scale it until it seems about the same size or in scale. And I think that should do it, more or less. If we compare it to the wagon, that's about the size it should be. Press Enter. I think this little fellow could be slightly bigger. So let's make him slightly bigger. Right, and then to make them seem like they are in the water, I'm going to create a new layer. So just add a new layer, make a selection of the bottom where you feel that it could be submerged in the water. And then create a new paint layer. Then with your brush tool, select the color of the water and paint that in. right? I'm painting over the edge. Let's lower the opacity and control click your boat. Shift Control I to invert the selection and then press delete on the keyboard. That should put your boat into the water. Right, and then just want to add some of these ripples at the edge of the boat. Right, and then we could, if we leave the boat here, we could extend these ripples towards the boat. More or less, something like that. Okay, this is just a quick demo. You could fully integrate your boat into the scene. This is just a quick and dirty way to make it look like the boat is submerged in the water. And that might be a bit too deep for that boat, but I'm sure that's fine. It's not the end of the world. Without and with, we could have that bird on the shore as well. Maybe, yeah, let's put it. No, it's not going to fit that wagon, so let's put it there. But you can see now you can put your boats anywhere you want and make it part of the scene by adding either water that submerges the boat or adding a shadow underneath the boat where it is stranded on dry land. And that's how you add boats to your scene. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you enjoy drawing boats and making them part of your scenes, and how easy it is to draw boats using a method by drawing a box and just following the logical curves and using the wire grid method that I've showed you in the beginning. Happy drawing and see you in the next one.